Jamie.
And I'm Richard.
And we're in the Guitarist Tone Lounge today to take a look at a pedal that harks back to the glorious 60s past of fuzz tone, which is this Rotosound RFB1 67 Fuzz reissue right here. As you can see from the size of the pedal itself, it really is from before the days of pedal boards crammed with compact pedals. It's gloriously nostalgic, but inside it has real deal new old stock components where it counts. So we're going to take a little look at this pedal, tell you what you get for your money, and have a look at whether it really does evoke those classic 60s sounds. So Richard, tell us a little bit about some of the features of this pedal that make it authentic to the 67 original.
Right, well apparently the germanium transistors are new old stock.
That's
so
right.
It's very much, what you're getting is what you got in the originals. I think some of the other components are updated because I think they could be quite temperamental, and I know that I'd heard about guitar players going into a shop and trying every fuzz pedal until they found one they liked. These are a bit more consistent than that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting what they've done here actually, because they've, the germanium transistors, as a lot of fuzz aficionados will know, were really the beating heart of that great sort of chewy, expressive tone. The original OC75 germanium transistors are, like angel hair or unicorn.
Unobtainium.
Unobtainium, basically. So what they've done is they've sourced a very, very near equivalent from Ukraine, which are new old stock germanium transistors with a very, very similar spec to the OC75s. Right. What they have done as a sort of nod to making the pedal consistent rather than wandering all over the place like those original units did, like as you say, is they've put some power control circuitry in here, or power regulation circuitry, I should say, that stops the sound of the pedal fluctuating so much with battery voltage. But apart from that, and the fact it's on a military grade PCB, the components.
Yeah, they're hand wired, aren't they?
Yeah. It's sort of a hand built pedal. The kind of as I say, the germanium transistors that it kind of gets its real core tone from are very faithful to the original ones from 1967, and the rest of it is absolutely of the era. Got this sort of almost like hammered grey finish.
Oh, it's got the look. Yeah, I mean, this reminds me very much of a fuzz pedal I had, and I spent ages googling it today, and it turns out it was a Jennings who Rotosound did make some pedals in collaboration with them. So I don't know if it was one of those, but they're basically saying there is only one survivor or something like that. Well, yeah, mine one didn't survive. Unfortunately, a school friend of mine rebuilt it with better circuitry. But I mean, we should hear this, because I certainly, when I hear something like, oh, well, we've used the original components where it counts and updated this, and I start thinking, oh, wait a minute, how much is this going to sound like the originals? This sounds fantastic, and it takes me right back to when I had that Jennings pedal. Yeah. I bought this trainer combo, and he gave me the fuzz pedal with it, and I got it home and switched this thing on, and it really was like, oh, that's the sound I've been wanting.
Well, that's the real acid test, isn't it? Because these pedals, they're large, they don't run off a modern power supply. You think, well, why would you play it? And the reason to play one of these is just that the sound is glorious, it's really touch sensitive. Should we hear it? Let's have a little go. I want
to make sure it's not on. I want you to hear. So we have this. So
that's a JTM45.
JTM45, yeah, not 100% clean, but basically.
So what we're going for here is a sort of rig that might be typical in 67, really. JTM45, okay, this is a modern reissue, but it's indicative of the kind of amp this would have.
They're made true to the originals. So right now. I love the way the frequency at the very ultra highs shifts as you sustain it. just on the very tail off of the note, I kind of hear it rise. I should point out that this is with the fuzz control set to 0.
Yeah.
And the treble control set quite low.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently the treble control is a sort of a two-way thing, with it straight up being more neutral. I have it down to about 2 because that just seemed to be the sound that I heard in my head. You can whack it right up and it becomes quite sharp, a sort of special effecty sort of thing. But that seems to be, if I go from... It seems to retain the same kind of overall characteristic, but it just gets so dirty. I love it.
So you're playing with a Nags SSC, which is very much in the ballpark of a sort of 59 Les Paul standard type thing. Isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, these pickups are bare knuckle. They're based very closely on the Mule model, so they're PAFs basically. They're not super high output, about 8 and a bit K.
So again, it's a good match if we're recreating the sounds of an era. It's a pretty good sort of combo.
Indeed, yeah. It's not like an EMG or something like that. Yeah.
No. Well, shall we tell you what? If you do a little bit of playing, I'm going to play with the treble control just to show you the range of that as Richard's playing, and then we'll sort of turn up the gain.
That goes a long way.
It does, and we might switch to the telly in a moment just to show you how that sounds as well. But let's start with showing the sweep of the treble control.
Right.
Interesting because it's not a conventional treble control that just adds treble. It actually cuts bass as it goes up towards the treble, isn't it? So the sort of half mast is a good balance of both. Turn it down and you get all of the bottom end back, and then turn it all the way up and you get a sort of wiry kind of, almost like the solo in it. It's not unusual, which I think was a Jimmy Page sort of,
yeah.
That's interesting. So that works in a different way to how we were used to EQ working on pedals.
Indeed, yeah. And I suppose it's worth mentioning at this point, I'm not playing a whole lot of chords or riffs or anything like that. You certainly can, but as you can probably hear and certainly would feel if you plugged in, it's not super defined. I mean, it's great for one of these. I mean, I've played through some horrific fuzz pedals where you couldn't play anything except a single note line. These are really good. The sound is very together for one of these. They're not really meant to be kind of thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, show the sort of dynamic ranges of the pedal a little bit more. These are traditional sort of vintage style humbuckers, but they've got a little bit more clout than the Lola bridge pickup in this telly. So why don't I swap this with you? You play the fuzz with this, and we'll play with the gain control, so you can sort of hear the range. Yeah,
we'll hear more of the travel of it that way.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay, Richard switched to my 52 telly reissue, which I've made some mods to, including an Alnico staple pickup at the neck, but we're not on that. We're on the quite vintage style Lola bridge pickup. We're going to go from the absolute bottom of the gain range, which is still kind of gainier than most pedals, and I'm just going to turn it up as Richard's playing, and we'll see what that sounds like.
Right, here we go. It's a great fun sound to play. Did we have more there, or was that up?
No, that was absolutely full. But what's interesting is, do you remember the Electro Harmonix Big Muff was originally marketed as a distortion sustainer, but there's a similar effect going on here. As you turn it up to the limit of its travel, you're not necessarily getting much more fuzz, but you are getting loads more compression and loads
different
more
quality
sustain.
to the whole thing. Yes, indeed.
It's almost like not quite infinitely sustaining, but if you held a note, if I turn it right up and you held a note. great, isn't it? So what I think that's interesting about that is, you know, you look at this and you think, oh, is this just for nostalgia freaks, basically? But you can see this working in like sort of, you know, stoner metal or something like that.
Oh, yeah. And I think that if you do want to get those authentic tones, like I'm thinking of the solo from Heartbreaker, you know, the Jimmy Page stuff. I mean, he actually used one of these, didn't he, in the late 60s? Heartbreaker is one that springs to mind immediately. I think No Quarter has got some of that sound to it as well. I mean, I don't know for a fact that he used one on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I can probably get away with it. If I do a slightly shorter version of that lick, then you've just got that sound. It's in the pedal, you know, it's the right sound that you hear on the record.
It's interesting that, you know, there are so many fuzzers on the market, but the best ones, and I think this is a really good example, somehow have endless compression, but also there's touch sensitivity, but also there is some detail there that is...
Yes, there is, yeah. Where are we now? If I just come back a little bit, one of the things that, in fact, I've come all the way back to about, what is that from here, 9 o'clock, because we've got so much gain available there that if I... One of the things that these were known for, I'll finish the sentence, is that you could back the guitar down and really change the tone.
And with fuzz faces, it's known that another sort of, you know, ace up their sleeve is that when you back off the volume, they actually create quite a nice, flattering, clean tone.
Yes. I can hear that chewiness around the edges. It becomes like a faster sound to play. I feel like I've got an album's worth of riffs with that sound.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really interesting. When we got it out of the box, I must admit I was thinking, oh, you know, this is a collector's piece. Okay, fair enough. It'll probably make some evocative sounds, but, you know, beyond... you know, fuzz pedal aficionados, maybe it won't have that much musical application, but I think it really does, actually.
I think it does, and I don't know if I did say earlier, I mean, I know I mentioned the pedal that I had, but I just remember getting an electric guitar, I mean, it was early 80s, summer of 82, I think, and had this other sort of pedal similar to this, and just finding it the most exciting thing, and playing through a similar sound again now does bring some of that back. Yeah. It really is a great pleasure to hear that noise coming out as I hit the strings.
Well, as you've been watching this video, you'll probably have heard like some music examples, some playing we've done together. When I've been playing through a Vox AC15. Again, we're trying to stick with amps that are broadly in, you know, would have been available on that scene at that time in '67. Okay, we're using modern reissues, so we're not going right down the rabbit hole, but you get the idea. I think it's a really cool pedal, and you know, okay, the size of it is pretty imposing, but I think, given the sounds you can get out of it, I don't think it will put off anybody who really loves those tones. The only thing we will say that it is sort of impedance sensitive, so you don't really want a buffered pedal in front of it. You want it to be plugged straight into the guitar or first in the chain to get that touch sensitivity and that interactivity with it and that sound. One thing that Rotosound did say when they sent the pedal to us, they suggested that back in the day, the most popular strings around the time that they were selling these were the stainless steel, what are now the British steel
here we go.
Strings. So these have a brighter tone than the nickel steel Rotosound yellows that we've got on both guitars. We've got a fresh set of Rotosound yellows on these. They sound great. They're that balanced tone we're all used to from nickel steel strings. Might be quite interesting to see that if we get a last ounce of vintage authenticity from the tone, if we A-B'd with the British steel strings and see if we can really conjure up a little bit more of that evocative 60s sound. So
maybe a good plan is if I play a couple of chords and a couple of lines with and without the fuzz, and
then we'll chuck the British steels on and we'll see how
we'll do the same thing.
Okay, so these are the Rotosound yellows, the modern nickel steels. We're going to play a few riffs. We'll play the exact same ones with the British steels on after we've had a little changeover.
Right.
Okay, that was the Rotosound yellow nickel steel. So with a little bit of video magic, we'll return in 1 second with the British steel strings that would have been used, ones very like them, in 67. Okay, we've strung up the telly with the British steel, so here we go. Does this give us the ultimate 60s sound with the fuzz?
I'm afraid I couldn't remember exactly what I'd played a few minutes ago on the other one, but I hope that's a good approximation.
Yeah, they're meant to sound brighter. They sound a bit like beefier, actually, to my ears.
I agree. I felt like they feel beefier. They feel like there's slightly higher tension going on, and you're really. I mean, the other ones sounded like they had a bit more sort of sizzly top, and these ones feel a bit more like.
A bit more grunty.
Yeah, they'll smash your brains out. Yeah.
I did think of Jeff Beck a little bit, you know, just with that sound there for some reason, you know, with the long sustaining fuzz as well. It's...
Yeah.
So so that's it really. We've had a lot of fun playing with this actually. I did, as we said before, we weren't sure if it was just a nostalgia exercise. It's actually really cool. This one, each one comes, you know, hand initialed by Jason Howe, who's the current head of the company, and it's a family-owned company. So he's you know, the current one in line from James Howe, who would have run the company in the 60s. So you know, it really is a little chunk of history, Rotosound history, British music history, and if you fancy checking it out, we'd heartily recommend it. It's a very cool thing.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.